Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, I'm going to give you guys the best build for all 100 brawlers in the game right now. So you guys like to see this every single update, which is just crazy. But let's go through it then. Starting off with Shelly. So Shelly, I think fast forward is the better gadget right now. It used to always be clay pigeons, but all the pros use clay fast forward just because it gives you all of your ammo. And in particular, it's really helpful to cycle through to your super against those tanks. So you just hyper counter those tanks. Band-Aid is the better one, and damage and shield. Nita is next. So Nita, both of these gadgets are a little bit lackluster. Faux is going to be your better gadget since the buffies, and with star powers as well. Bear with me is still going to be a better one. Again, all of these buffies are pretty underwhelming, but it does depend on the game mode, right? You want to go to hyper bear when it's heist, and then with Nita, I think you pretty much need the shield gear on Nita every time, and then just depending on whether it's open or closed map damage or the speed gear. Next up, we have Colt. So Colt is pretty plain and simple as well. If you really need a wall breaker to open up the map, and especially if you got B, Silver Bullet is pretty good, but everybody's using Speed Loader as a pro, and this gadget is actually pretty broken, and people aren't really talking about it. Very strong. Slick Boots is by far your better buffy since the update. The extra movement speed you get is absolutely insane. And then you can see there with the gears. Bull is next. So Bull is pretty simple as well. To be honest, I really like T-Bone mid-style, and especially against a tougher matchup, this might be actually pretty good. And it's actually really good in heist because you can use this gadget on the heist safe. Funny enough, I don't know how that even works, but Stomper is your better one overall. 3-second stun is completely broken, and Tough Guy is going to be a better one. But if you're playing ladder, Berserker one actually is pretty fun to cycle through supers. I use that a lot. And then again, depending on the map and the situation, I switch between those ones. Brock is next. So Brock is pretty simple. You want to be using rocket fuel, rocket latest if you play a lot of ladder, but you use Brock on knockout bounties, break open the walls, right? More rockets is better as well. All the pros use this one. And then gears, you never swap away from this. So yeah, it's very plain and simple. All of this, and then depending on the matchup, you swap between the gadgets. Next up, we've got El Primo. So El Primo, pretty simple. This gadget, and if you're playing Brawl, I think Meteor Rush probably is better. And then everywhere else, I think El Fuego is better. 2k extra damage is pretty good. And then I think this is pretty much the best setup with El Primo. Next up, we have Barley. So Barley, again, pretty simple. If you're playing a lot of ladder, I think right now, I think with so many tanks and assassins, Sticky Therapy is probably your best bet. And the extra damage is better. And then damage and shield with a throw. What else can you really go? Poco is next. So Poco, again, both gadgets are useful. If you're just playing ladder, then Tuning Fork is better overall. But Protective Tunes is really good at countering what Poco needs to counter, like Lou, like Crow, B, etc. Amber. Next up, gears. So I just go gadget cooldown just because you're really reliant on your gadgets, and then Screeching solo with Poco. And then lastly, we've got Rosa. So Rosa, pretty plain and simple. I mean, both gadgets are actually pretty good. I think in competitive play, Grow Light is actually better just because you want to create a bit of carnage and just, again, trying to sneak in around. And since the buff to Rosa with her super duration, Thorny Gloves is going to be your better option, and then speed and damage. I'm moving over to the super rare category, starting off with Jessie. I probably never swap away from this build, and then when I'm playing heist, I'll just switch over to this gadget. Yeah, it's pretty plain and simple with Jessie. Dynamike is next as well, and Satchel Charge is really good, but Fidget Spinner can be good against brawlers that counter you pretty well, like the assassins and stuff that jump onto you. And then Demolition. To be fair, if you're playing Pit Stop, Dino Jump actually is better. But yeah, this is set up with Dynamike. Tick is next, and I think Well Oiled is going to be your better one. Tick really isn't the best of brawlers right now, but this is the build that you want to use all of the time with Tick. No point really explaining, pretty simple. Next up, 8-bit. So 8-bit, with 8-bit depends on the game mode for sure. If you're in a really tough matchup or inside of Gem Grab, I think in particular Gem Grab, you use plugged in and cheat cartridge. And then if you're playing heist or every other game mode, well, you use cheat cartridge every single game mode no matter what. Outside of heist, extra credits you use in heist, booster you use everywhere outside of Gem Grab. And then you pretty much never want to swap away from this build. That's perfect with 8-bit. Rico is next. So Rico, again, it depends on the matchup. Bouncy Castle actually feels a lot better since his unload speed buff, and it's really good when you haven't got a good matchup with Rico. For example, if you're facing off against throwers, or if you're facing off against like Stu. but multiple launcher is your better one overall. And again, it does depend on the matchup. If it's a map with a lot of walls, super bouncy. If it's a bad matchup, robo retreat can be really toxic, and then never swap away from this really, unless it is a super bushy map, and then I think you need like the vision gear on. To be honest, I think I've been realizing that shield gear is essential on Rico because he's so squishy. Darryl is next, so again, heist, this gadget, everywhere else this gadget, steel hoops everywhere, and then damage and shield, pretty plain and simple. Penny is next, and Penny, again, salty barrel everywhere. There are the odd occasion I might use trusty spyglass on like hot zone, but I never really use it. And then again, heavy coffers everywhere. There might be Brawl Ball where you might use this one, but yeah, but you want to pretty much stay with damage and shield or health gear, and shield pretty good with Penny. Colt is next, and with Colt, again, depends on the situation. Flying Hook is going to be better on some heist maps to get into like safe zone, for example, or in bounty to get the blue star. Everywhere else, you probably want to use heat ejector. Second star power every single time, and then I go health or damage pretty much every time with Colt. Depends if you're being a passive Colt player or being really aggressive. You swap between those gears. Jacky is next. Jacky is really easy. First gadget every single time, and first star power every time, unless you're in a matchup where literally everybody outranges you. But pretty much with Jacky, we just want to be running into people, constantly getting that extra bit of damage. And then with Jacky, again, depends on the map. If it's bushy, yeah, this map. If it's not a bushy map, I'd probably go something like this. But I just think you don't go Jacky on an open map anyway, so just go speed and damage with her. And then finally for the super res, we have Gus. Gus is really easy. First gadget, second star power, and then damage and shield. But if you're playing bounty, I actually really like the health gear on Gus. Now moving on to the epic brawlers, starting off with Bo and Noob, Buffy Brawler, and both gadgets are really strong. Super Totem is definitely a better one, but I wouldn't put you away from playing Tripwire, especially on like Brawl Ball to open up the map and score goals easily. Both of them are really strong, so gadget Buffy is good with Bo, and yeah, depending on the map, you want to swap between these, but Snare Bearer will always be a better one. And with Bo, again, it depends on the matchup. I mean, you could easily go with the shield gear as well with Bo, but I like damage and health most of the time. It just works really nicely with a Bo. Ems is next. Ems is a pretty interesting one, so I find myself using Acid Spray a lot more than Friend Zone. Friend Zone just doesn't feel as anywhere near as strong as before. Acid Spray is really toxic. Slow for a wall. We can get a lot of damage as well. Yeah, it's pretty strong, to be honest, but again, depends on the matchup and how many walls there are. But Acid Spray is super underrated. Hype is your better star power for sure. And then again, depending on the map, speed, damage is always essential. Pretty much play Ems on a bushy map. Stu is next. Stu, pretty easy. So super passive game mode, speed zone, but hardly anyone uses speed zone anymore. Breakthrough is by far your better gadget. And then gas heal all of the time. Damage and shield gear with Stu. You don't need anything else. Piper is next. So Piper again. It depends on the matchup. If you're playing Piper on a more aggressive game mode like Gem Grab, or where you know she's going to get closed down, also aimer is pretty decent. But you normally play Piper, especially in this meta, on bounty, knockout, those longer range situations. You've got heist as well. Star powers, snappy sniping all of the time. And again, you can see here, swap between damage and health pretty much all of the time. Health gear you want to be using on bounty, and specifically into other snipers, it's actually really effective. And damage gear is also pretty good. Pam is next. Pam is a pretty easy one. Scrap Sucker and Mama's Squeeze. Super open map. Mama's Hook could be pretty good. In terms of your gears, you probably never want to swap away from this mythic gear. And then, depending on the situation, it's either health or vision with Pam. Next up, we have Frank. Frank, pretty easy, right? Irresistible Attraction is still by far your better option. I've been noticing, though, maybe on ladder, active noise cancelling could be pretty underrated because of the amount of balls and the amount of BBs you're facing off against. So just being able to not get interrupted is actually pretty underrated. But yeah, Irresistible Attraction is your better option. Sponge is still your better option. I've seen a few pros dabble with this Buffy, but I don't think it's anywhere near as powerful as Sponge right now. It's still after the nerfs, and yeah, speed, damage, health, those are the ones that you need. Actually, a lot of pros go shield gear with Frank, funny enough, and I'm gonna actually buy it. I mean, it sounds stupid, but you use Frank for pure health, right? So some pros actually just slap on the shield gear and just run it down against people. This is just hilarious to think about. BB's next. BB's pretty easy. Vitamin booster all of the time. I've not really had the chance to try extra stick too much, but it doesn't really seem that powerful. So yeah, heal gear. Heal gadget, sorry. And then home run is going to be by far your better star power. And then with the gears, I think If you're running home run, I don't think the speed stacks, so I just go something like this with Bibi every time, either health or the shield gear, depending on how you feel. B is next. B pretty easy. You want to use Rattled Hive all of the time unless you're facing off against a Gene or maybe even a sniper to tank an extra shot. Honeycomb is by far a better option, and then damage and shield with B. Pretty easy. Nani is next. Nani, again, it's always about the game mode, so return to sender everywhere outside of... Actually, no, yeah, return to sender on bounty on longer range maps, or if you're facing off against snipers. Warping time everywhere else on highs, Brawl, wherever you want to play Nani. Again, it depends on the situation. So if you're playing, well, actually, I think most people just use Tempered Steel because you can't really guarantee a kill with autofocus onto any brawler. So is it even worthwhile getting? Unless you're against a super squishy sniper, most pros actually just use Tempered Steel because then at least you're safe in your Nani super. Yeah, and again, you can probably swap between quite a lot of these gears. It depends on whether you like cycling through supers fast, whether you really want to try and counter those snipers with the health gear. So yeah, Nani's pretty versatile there. Edgar is next. Edgar just feels pretty poop right now. Nothing really works with him. Let's Fly is just essential. Fisticuffs is the better one. This can work in some situation. I just never like his star powers and gadgets. I don't know what it is. And then damage gear and shield gear with Edgar. Griff is next. So Griff, Piggy Bank, yeah. Both of these are actually pretty good. If you're playing Hot Zone, I think Business Resilience is your better option because you want to sustain your life and keep on the zone. But I'm finding Keep the Changes underrated and just really good at just shredding through those tanks because it's really hard to hit Griff's main attack. And then I go with health and really definitely need to reload him. And I normally go with health or the damage gear with Griff. And next up, we've got Grom. So Grom, pretty plain and simple. Radio check, bushy map. I mean, it's probably impossible to play Grom on a bushy map nowadays, but radio check is better. X Factor, yes. Damage and shield. Yeah. Bonnie next. And again, pretty easy. Sugar Rush, Black Powder. You want to be going supercharged gear and you want to be going the damage gear or the health gear with Bonnie between these two. I like, well, health gear is actually pretty good as well, but damage gear is always solid. Gale is next. Gale is pretty easy. You don't hardly have to use Spring Ejector. Twist is better. And again, depends on the situation and the map. If it's a lot of walls or if it's Brawl, Blustery Blow is better. Freezing Snow better on those open maps. And again, depends on the map. I've got like 4 gears for him because you play gear, like he can be underrated on bushy maps if you slap on the vision gear, or he's just good in general as a mid on open maps with damage and shield. Collette is next, and yeah, nothing's changed about her. Gotcha, mass attacks all of the time. Damage and shield, I can just run through that. Nothing changed about it. Belle as well, nothing's really changed. I think reverse polarity can be good in some situations, especially on knockout, but nest egg is overall way better because especially if you have to lead, if they push into it, they're just dead. Positive feedback all the time. Grounded, if you are facing off against like a Mortis or Kenji, can be really underrated. Reload gear and the shield gear every time. Ash is next. With Ash, it's pretty much chill pill every time. Fast bash every time. Speed and damage, you do not swap from that build with Ash. Lola is next. So Lola, I'm finding, I used to really like freeze frame, but it doesn't actually really do too much. Stunt double actually at least gives you a little bit of extra health. The pros still use freeze frame, but I won't shy away from that. Sealed with a Kiss is better. And then with Lola, I mean, you probably just want to go damage gear actually with Lola. Even though you're healing up and you probably won't get the most advantage out of the damage gear. I mean, it's up to you. You can use vision gear as well with Lola. Pretty versatile. Sam, really easy. I'm flying through this. First gadget. First star power, damage and shield. You never swap away. Mandy is next. Again, it depends on what Mandy player you are. Most people use the gadget that shoots through a wall because it can help you cycle through super and get you kills. So that is better. In my sights, yes. Damage and shield, yes. You don't swap away from that. Unless you're playing like shooting star, you might use the health gear. So Maisie is next. Disengage, tremors, damage and shield. Really easy. Nothing has changed there again. Hank. Again, this is... So in terms of your matchup, this can be really underrated with Hank. So water balloons against the tanks and then everything else barricade. Water balloons really helps you counter those tanks. Like you can be really, really good into so many brawlers. And then with Hank, again, it's probably like damage and the health gear with him. With Pell, yeah, it's overcooked and then heat shield. And then it's either health or damage. To be fair, I like the health gear on Pell because you probably just use her right now in the meta just for a bit of extra tanking and just a bit of presence. She's not really good for anything else. The twins are next, and it's second gadget and it's second star power every time. Damage and shield every single time. Don't even need to debate that. Angelo's next, so again, it depends on the situation. Most of the time, Master Fletcher is better, but Stinging Flight can also be really solid. to gain your map control, to jump away from pressure. Damage and shield gear is better. Yeah, I know with Angelo, some people might be like, well, okay, so it's just good because of the way Angelo works, but a good Angelo can just tap sufficiently and just keep charging through his super anyways. Berry is next, really easy heist, second gadget. Everywhere else, the first gadget. Floor is fine all of the time, damage and shield, just because the other gears don't really work that well with him. Yeah, just, I don't know, a bit bleh. Next up, long arms and hardened hoodie, like 100%, damage and shield. It's just so easy to build with shade. Next up, Meeple. So Meeple, again, depends on the situation. And a lot of pros actually swap between like all of the builds with Meeple. So Mansions and Meeples can be better on like Knockout, Bounty. This will help you with your lack of range. You can push the enemies back with this gadget easily. Rage Quit is really good against assassins and tanks. And then again, depends on the amount of like rules there are in the game, right? Rule bending is just good for overall value. But do not pass but go is your better option, absolutely, because you can cycle through super better. Next up, you've got Trunks. So Worker Ants is by far your better gadget because you can tank like an extra shot and gain the healing from it. Really good in 1v1 interactions. New Insects is definitely your better star power. And then again, depends on the map and situation, but most of the time I run damage and shield. So now moving on to the mythic brawlers strap, and this one's going to be a long one. So Mortis, the best gadget, is it's very dependent on the matchup. I think both gadgets are insane. Both are really, really strong still. I think most pros use Creature of the Night, mainly because it makes you invulnerable. It's very, very strong. Cold Snake every time. Damage and shield gear with Mortis. Next up, we've got Tara. Tara, you want to use the second gadget all of the time. If you know you're facing off against, I don't know, like Penny, Sandy, you switch over, but that's about it. Second star power all of the time. And then, yeah, depends whether you're on a bushy map. You probably want to opt for something like this with Tara. Next we've got Jean. So, again, depends on the matchup, right? If you're playing Gem Grab, then you want to be using Lamp Blower. Everywhere else, Vengeful Spirit. Again, depends on the matchup. If you know your teammates aren't going to sit close to you because you're facing a Belle or something, then Spirit Slap, but Magic Puffs elsewhere. Again, depends on the situation. Bushy map, you want to go with something like this. Or if it's an open map, like you just saw, you want to be going with the shield gear instead. Next up, we've got Max. Max with Phase Shifter, absolutely run and gun all of the time. Unless you're really passive Max, you can go first star power and then health gear and shield. Mr. P is next, and both of them are just a bit meh at the moment. I mean, it depends. If you know in a matchup you're going to get your super, then this first gadget's better. But second gadget is better overall. Revolving Door is going to be better. And then damage and shield. I mean, it's pretty meh with Mr. P. Second gadget and first star power with Sprout. You don't need to swap away from that. And then again, this build here. There's just nothing you need to change with this build. Every map, every mode, you go with that. Byron is next. So booster shots is going to be by far your better gadget. But sometimes shot in the arm can actually be pretty decent. I mean, I don't really use it too often, but it's underrated. And then you want to be using first star power, second star power into like brawlers where you know you need to pierce through them. So like rough sandbags or anything like that. And then with Byron, I just swap between these two. Next up, we've got Squeak. So Squeak is pretty easy on Knockout and Bounty, where you normally use Squeak right now. Wind Up is better. Residue can be pretty underrated on some maps. It's still pretty good. And then star powers, everyone's like, well, when do you use these different star powers, right? Chain Reaction I like to use against squishier brawlers because it can help in those 1v1 kills. But most times Super Sticky is better just because if you connect it onto someone, they're slowed for 4 whole seconds and you can probably end up taking them down. And again, depends with Squeak. I think health and shield is actually probably the best. But sometimes I like gadget cooldown, especially if I'm just spamming through these wind-up gadgets. Next up, we've got Lou. So Lou is pretty simple. Most players will use second gadget. The pros use Ice Block just because it's actually pretty hard. Like most pros just use the super just for zoning. But again, if you're majority of players aren't pros here, this is a really strong gadget. And Hypothermia, absolutely. Whoever tells you to use the star power, just unsubscribe from them. They're clueless. All right, anyways, damage gear and supercharge gear every time with Lou. Ruffs is next, and Ruffs, again, depends on the matchup. Most of the time, you want to be using air support, but Take Cover is a really good counter to a lot of those single-shot brawlers. Air superiority everywhere, and inside of Knockout, use this star power, and then, yeah, damage and shield with Ruffs. Next up, we got Buzz. So Buzz, Again, depends on the situation. This gadget is better overall, but Bushy Map's X-Ray Shades, and you pair it with this star power. So I think you probably need, well, you'd need at least Eye Sharp and this one. That's probably your best build overall, right? But I like Tougher Torpedo against those tankier brawlers, and then Damage and Shield with the Buzz. Fang is next. So Fang, again, depends on the matchup and how good of a Fang you are. I think Corn Fu is actually really underrated, especially if you play Fang on like Brawl Ball or something like that. But if you're playing Knockout, Bounty, Fang, that's probably his best game modes right now. Roundhouse Kick is better, and then Divine Souls is better, but if you're looking for some Fang clips, and Fresh Kicks can be pretty solid. Next up, we've got Eve. Eve is pretty simple, I believe. Yeah, Gotta Go is by far a better option. Unnatural Order is by far a better option. And then the gears, I mean, you always use Reload gear, and then it's kind of up to you. I mean, I don't really like the Mythic gear, so most of the time I just use like the Shield gear, Damage gear, or something like that. So yeah, up to you. I don't think it's worth the 2k coins for that Mythic gear. Janet is next, so it's actually interesting. Both gadgets are usable again. Drop the base is really good on those bushy maps, but I think you normally use Janet and Gem Grab, so Backstage Pass will always be better in Gem Grab because you can save yourself against those aggressive brawlers. Vertical Warm Up, yes, and then again, depending on the map, right, like bushy map, your Vision gear, everywhere else you want to slap this, so you probably need like 4 gears with Janet. Next up, we've got Otis, easy, second gadget, second star power. And in terms of the build, I just use Supercharge because what else do you really use on him? And then again, depending on what map it is, you swap between Vision, blah, 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 blah. You guys know the deal. Buster's next, easy. Second gadget, second star power, and then speed and damage. Or you want to go health and damage with Buster, depends on the map. Most time it's just speed and damage. Gray's next, Gray Walking Cane. Some people go Grand Piano as a cheesy way to maybe counter some brawlers by wall breaking, but I think you can just do the same with Walking Cane. If you just hit your Walking Cane, you can break open the map, so no point really there. And then if you're playing Gem Grab or Hot Zone, second star power. If you're playing Bounty or Knockout, Fake Injury is better, especially paired with this gear. And then I just go Gadget Cooldown just because you want as many Walking Canes as possible, because that's how you build up your super better. And then with RT, it's pretty simple. Pretty much all the time you're out on the line. Maybe on a super open map if you're playing RT, hacks will be usable, but yeah, out of line is better, recording is better, and again, if it's a super open map, you want to use this build, but out of line, recording 95% of the time, and then you go health and shield with RT all of the time. Willow is next. Willow, most people, well, pretty much all the pros use dive just because it's really good at wasting enemy utility. Spellbound could actually be underrated, and especially on maps like Super Beach where you just need that extra damage quickly. And then depending on the game mode, Obsession you want to be using pretty much all of the time, but specifically in Brawl Ball, yes, Love is Blind everywhere else. Damage and shield with Willow. Doug is next, pretty easy. If you're really going for the heal cheese compositions with Doug, double sausage is better. Extra mustard is better everywhere else. Self-service, yes, better. I mean, again, damage and speed, easy with Doug. Chuck, again, depends on what type of Chuck player you are. It depends on the map. Rerouting is your better option, competitively speaking, especially inside of Heist, but Ghost Train will be better on those cheesy Chuck maps, so both are pretty good. And again, depends on the level of cheese, right? I think most people just use Tickets Please Pit Stop. Can be pretty good for cheesy positionings with Chuck, but yeah, Tickets Please is better overall. Charlie, in terms of the build, again, it depends on what matchup. Both are actually pretty good. As a gem carrier, it can be pretty good to use this gadget. Spiders is great against those single shot brawlers. Slimy is the star power everybody uses, and it's normally just damage and shield gear with Charlie. Next up, we've got Miko. So Miko, you can see Clip and Scream is by far your better option. There are a few maps where you can use Presto, but Clip and Scream's better. Extra damage. You slowing someone, it just allows for you and your teammates to pinch. It's pretty good. And again, Heist, you want to be using this or Showdown, and then everywhere else, Monkey Business, damage and shield, pretty self-explanatory. Melody's next, easy, interlude everywhere, fast beats everywhere, damage and shield. You don't even need to debate about her build. Next up, we've got Lily. Again, vanish everywhere. Spiky, actually no, you use Vigilance everywhere. I don't know why it was on Spiky. Vigilance pretty much in every situation. Spiky, when you're maybe facing off against tanks, that might be better, but I don't know. Most people just use Vigilance. And then damage and shield with Lily. Next up, we've got Clancy. So Clancy, snappy shooting is better, and then recon is better overall. I mean, sometimes you can use this build, but I just find with Clancy, it's just all about getting to that last level. You just don't want to risk it most of the time. You just want to get to the last level, and then you're good. So I just like to use this build. Hopefully his kind of kit gets reworked in the future. Anyways, damage and shield is going to be better. Mo is next, absolutely first gadget, and depending on the matchup, I've said this a million times, but the second star power gives you extra range, guys. If you didn't know already, it removes 1 stone, so you have less damage, but if you're being outranged, speed and ticket is better. First star power is usable pretty much all the time, though. Next up, Juju. Again, it depends on the matchup, funny enough. Sometimes you can actually get good value out of the first gadget, but most people use Elementalist. And again, depends on the matchup. If you know you're facing off against some, I don't know, some really high DPS brawlers, I don't know, like a Colt or something like that, then this one's better just for a little bit of extra wasted ammo. But Number Needles is really good against the good matchups like the Hanks or the tanks that are just really find Gree annoying to deal with. Damage and shield all of the time. Ollie is next. Ollie's pretty easy. All eyes on me pretty much all of the time here. Sometimes you can use Regulate, underrated on like Belle's Rock. All eyes on me is just better though. Again, depending on the map, you can actually use both star powers. A lot of people since the star power nerf here have been using kick push, especially on like, again, Belle's Rock, or I think, was it Hideout? There's a few maps where you can get a lot of value out of this 20% movement speed. And then I just go damage and the health gear with Ollie. Next up, we got Lumi. So Lumi easy second gadget, second star power. Both of the other ones are just absolutely terrible. And then we have damage and shield gear with Lumi. Finks is next. Finks, the no escape gadget has been buffed and actually underrated in Brawl. It's actually alright, but back to the Finksters was way better. The first star power is just way better because that just doesn't even really build up your super any extra, because most of the time your super, you're actually you're dodging shots more than you're dealing damage. And then damage, and I mean, you can go shield, you can go health. I like to swap between the two. Jae Yong is next. Jae Yong is really easy. First gadget. I mean, I've seen a little bit of usage for this, but I think you need this extra bit of damage because you really lack DPS with Jae Yong. First star power all the time, and then health and damage gear with Jae Yong. Next we've got Ali. So second gadget all of the time. Second star power all of the time, and then damage and shield gear. Pretty much never swap away from this. If it's a super bushy map, then I might opt for something like that. But I still think you've got enough speed anyway with this gadget. I think damage and shield is just all the time. Mina's next. So Mina, you want to go windmill pretty much in every situation. In Brawl, I think people are realizing that this gadget can actually have its uses and pretty underrated. We've seen a few pros use it in the last monthly qualifiers, but windmill is better overall. First star power is by far your better option, and then damage and shield gear with Mina. Next up we got Ziggy. Ziggy, electric shuffle is a really strong gadget. There are a few use cases for Now You See Me, but people are saying, okay, it's good against assassin. I mean, it can be all right to escape, but I think the extra damage that you get with this gadget is insane. First star power is by far a better option. I know people might say, okay, you get extra damage with this one, right? And because it's easy to hit shots with, maybe this one's better. But the pros are still using Thunderstruck most of the time. And then damage and shield gear. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if people start using this one a bit more as well. Next up, we've got GG. GG is absolutely useless right now, but first gadget is by far your better option. And the second star power is better. I mean, I used to like this star power, but the second one's just better. Extra healing, just, I don't know, it's just better. It just feels a bit better. Next up, we've got Globert. Globert's an interesting one. Both gadgets are really usable. If you're pretty much only using Globert to heal, and if it's hot zone or something, if you're grouping up, this one's insane because you can charge a lot of super from this gadget. If you're next to your teammates, and if you're low as well, you get 75% healing if you heal all three of you. I mean, it's 75% of your supercharge, sorry, which is insane. But more lumens is easier probably to use, and you just shred through people. So again, up to you. The best star power is by far the second star power. Everybody's using this one. I feel like there's some underrated use cases for this one, but most pros use this one. And then damage and shield, you can never really go wrong with that. So those are the mythics. Onto your legendary brawlers, starting off with Spike. Spike, again, depends on the matchup here. Life Plant is your better gadget choice right now because popping pincushion was heavily nerfed. But I still find against assassins and tanks, you probably should use this one. But I see a lot of pros just still, even against assassins and tanks, use life plant. Funny enough, I don't know why. Next up, fertilizer is completely useless. Curveball is your better option. And again, depending on the map, most of the time people just use damage gear. Next up, we've got Crow. So Crow's an interesting one. I think Insta Poison probably is going to be your better option overall. Especially, it can give you some nice extra shield. It's just good to poison the enemies for longer. If you're playing a lot of Brawl and you're looking to counter Bibi, then Crow is one of your best options because you got Sloan Toxin, you got Anti-Heal. So yeah, very good. Carrying Crow is probably your better option right now, just because that extra poison duration is actually really toxic with Insta Poison. So I really like that combination. And then again, depends on the match, the mode, right? But most time you just use damage shield. I think you always need shield gear on Crow. Next up, we've got Leon. So Leon is pretty simple. I mean, Clone Projector has its uses and can be pretty cool to play with, but Lollipop Drop is really broken right now. The movement speed is insane, and it's bugged with Smoke Trails. So everybody, all the pros are using second gadget and first star power. Smoke Trails with that extra damage as well is just better. Visitor Heal with an extra second, you would think it's good, but just being able to cause carnage with the speed from the second gadget, yeah, it's just way better. Damage and shield all of the time. Sandy next, really easy. Stun, stopping people from regenerating with his star power and speed and damage gear. Next up, we've got Amber. Amber again is pretty simple, pretty much all the time. Dancing Flames and then Wild Flames. I mean, some pros do actually use this one, but I don't know, I find it awkward to use. I like the first star power, and then you always want reload gear, and then it's up to you. I think you need vision. I mean, vision damage or shield is best. The mythic gear is absolutely useless. Next up, we've got Meg. So Meg, Toolbox seems alright and underrated. I don't know. I still think the radius is quite small of it. Jolting Bolts is just better. I think Heavy Metal is going to be your better one overall as well. The extra bit of damage. And then up to you whether you just want survival or you want pure damage. You want to definitely the shield gear on Meg. Next up, we've got Surge. Surge, pretty easy. Power Surge is probably your better option in competitive play. If you're just playing Brawl, Power Shield is going to be good. You always use Serve Ice Cold and then damage and shield gear. I mean, if you play Bushy Map, Speed Gear is good as well. Next up, we've got Chester. So Candy Beans is by far your better gadget. It's just really good. Just spamming infinite buffs. Next up, Single Bella Mania as well, by far a better option. And then damage and shield. Again, if you're using Chester on a bushy map, you want to swap to something like this because you often play Chester on bushy map because he's tank counter. Next up, Cordelius. Again, depends on your matchup. If you're really trying to counter tanks and assassins, Poison Mushroom is better. But I'd say 90% of the time, pros use Replanting, very strong gadget. And then Combo Shrooms is your better option as well. And then, yeah, damage and shit, you probably never want to swap away from that. Kit is next. Kit is really easy. Yeah, you want to go Cardboard Box. I mean, if you're playing Knockout, Cheeseburger is probably better. But still think just Invisibility is broken. Again, depends on the game mode. Overly Attached everywhere. Showdown, this one. And then, yeah, I go Gadget Cooldown just because you want to be making sure that you get as many invisibles as possible. So yeah, that's why I use that. Next up, we got Draco. I was going to call him Ollie there, or bro. I was going to call it. Okay, anyways, we got Last Stand. This gadget is just by far the better one. Shredding is by far your better one. If you're playing Heist, Exposed is actually pretty good, but Shredding is better overall. And then health, damage. You can probably use damage if you're like a really good Draco player. I think damage and shield is probably better overall, or even like this as well. Gadget cooldown can be underrated as well. Next up, we've got Kenji. Easy. Second gadget, second star power. The other star power and gadget are awful. And then damage and shield with Kenji all of the time. Pierce is next. Again, against aggro brawlers, this gadget's going to be better. Everywhere else, bottomless mags. The first star power is by far a better option. And then damage and shield with him. Kaze is next. Kaze again. People are starting to swap to the first gadget a lot more, just because the invisibility is very, very short. But I think for most players, invisibility is going to be your stronger option. But if you're playing like Brawl, for example, or you're really aggressive on Kaze, this one's better just for that extra bit of health. Second star power all of the time, and damage and shield. And then finally, we have Sirius. So Sirius is unserious. His first gadget is going to be your better option. I mean, the second gadget is pretty toxic as well. Like, if you have a really strong matchup and you're just constantly healing and bringing them back to you, it can be pretty powerful. But I think A Star Is Born is better just because it gives you a free shadow. And if you get the right shadow on the right brawler, you just win the matchup so fast. And you slow them as well. So it's like a domino effect. You slow them, you're constantly spamming shots onto them, you're building up your shadow more from like a Bibi or a Frank. It's like impossible to deal with. And then in terms of star powers, absolutely second. Star powers can be better. You want faster supercharge rate, right? Why would you want this? You want faster supercharge rate. Anything that adds a projectile or increases your damage or increases supercharge will always be a better star power. and then damage and shield with Sirius. So yeah, that's the build that I use. And that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Super fast. I didn't want to waste any time in terms of builds because most of them haven't changed. But those are going to be all the best builds. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.